do you feel like it's a little early for practical application, or do you think like right now is actually the best time to be getting into the world of AI?
No, I absolutely think it's the best time to jump in right now, as you're going to be developing skills in a portfolio that are going to put you 6 months out ahead of the person that starts when it's ready. The other thing about when it's ready is that's always going to be a sliding scale. That's always going to be 6 months from now, no matter what.
AI is being used for scripting, for shooting and producing movies.
AI is being used for everything.
Hollywood production is being transformed by artificial intelligence.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Curious Refuge Podcast. Now, this podcast is all about having conversations about the future of art and storytelling through the power of artificial intelligence. However, one of the big challenges that arises whenever you try to learn all of these AI tools is simply the fact that they change and update almost constantly. And that brings us to today's guest. So, Tim is the creator of Theoretically Media, a YouTube channel dedicated to helping folks learn AI tools. Tim's content has helped hundreds of thousands of people on their artistic journeys, and he is also my personal favorite YouTuber for staying up to date on everything happening with AI as it relates to artwork. Tim has his fingers on the pulse of what's happening in AI and has really been covering this gigantic seismic shift that's been happening basically in real time. So for this episode, we wanted to have Tim on the podcast to chat about how the creative world has changed and where we might be heading in the near future. Tim, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast.
Hi, guys. Yeah, no, absolutely. Pleasure to be here. Always reciprocal as well. Always love anytime a CR video drops. I am all over it.
The amount of lunches we've had with you on our screen, watching Tim teach us, and we're just like eating whatever.
Well, and I know with you guys, because I try to keep my videos at around like 8 to 13 minutes. So that says a lot about how fast you eat lunch, because I can only imagine that keeping up with everything and doing videos, we do not have much time to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
That is true.
Well, before we get into the meat and potatoes, speaking of lunch, I think it'd be helpful to maybe just quickly introduce yourself, Tim. So what's your background and what brought you into the world of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, sure. I think there probably is a pretty good amount of crossover audience between folks that watch you and folks that watch me. But just in case you don't, I have a channel called Theoretically Media. I do it's essentially like creative AI tutorials and news. I mean, much like the content that you guys do as well. My background is that I lived in LA for a number of years, worked in Hollywood, eventually ended up moving back east, and had the channel initially started as a music tutorial channel, hence the guitars back there, focused on a piece of software called Ableton, which is kind of a DAW, digital audio workstation. But around, I guess, November of 2022, I started to see how AI was kind of creeping into music. By that point, I was already using like Midjourney version 3 as well. But I started to see AI creeping around to music with the very early, I think it was called Riff Fusion. So it was Stable Diffusion audio. And I really just started to see, ChatGPT really started to kind of poke its head in. I think at that point we were still on the playground version. But it became very clear that 2023 was going to be the year of AI. And I don't think I've been proven wrong. So I started to pivot the channel towards that direction. And, so I was pretty much just, I think it was good because I got a good ramp up between November, December, January, and February, so that when March happened, because I think everyone pretty much universally agrees that March of 2023 is when everything went to the moon. So, it's ever since that, I've been just kind of holding on for dear life, pretty much.
Before, I guess, we get into some of the more kind of visual AI tools and, as it relates to filmmaking, I guess if we could just circle back to music specifically, because I think it's a very interesting field that we haven't had a chance to personally explore so much. So my quick test in using AI music tools, it seems like there are a few that are pretty good, but generally AI, at least as it relates, if we're thinking about the way Midjourney or Stable Diffusion creates imagery, a lot of that stuff looks really realistic and could basically, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between something that was shot professionally and something that Midjourney put together sometimes. But with music, it seems like we're not quite there. Have you found that to be true for yourself? Like, how is AI really helpful in the music world right now versus like, where are we going?
So I think that there are a number of, I'm sort of the more professional end. There are some AI tools that assist people with like virtual mixing, like AI mixing. But even then, they're not really great. They make some odd choices. With all of the studio kind of stuff, there is like a bunch of AI, enhancers, I guess, or, things that we think of AI doing, like it's going to make your job easier, but really it's just kind of honing in on a couple of things and kind of getting there. On the creation side, I think that a lot of the Stable Diffusion audio stuff sounds interesting and cool. There is like this, like it gets really murky in the middle. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of definition in that sort of center frequency where it is, because it's Stable Diffusion. So it's being a little fuzzy in that area. There's a lot of them that are out there, and I would actually kind of warn people on that front. There's a lot of sites that are popping up recently that I've seen that claim to be AI, but really what they are is they're just loop, sort of like, they're just like, they're basically loop mashers. That's all there's a bunch of loops and they kind of like put them together in random orders. So based off of like, you put in a key or a genre and it just grabs a bunch of loops and assembles something for you. And the reason that I say to be wary of that is that you might end up putting something that you think is AI generated up onto like your YouTube channel or something. You might end up with a copyright strike because they're using essentially a copyrighted loop from somewhere else. And, it's happened to me a couple of times where I've used a loop off of a site called Splice, which is, kind of like, I guess Epidemic Music or any one of those, like, you can get a drum loop from here and put it on. You can use it copyright free, but somebody previously had copyrighted that thing. So, I'll end up with a copyright strike basically based off of like some hi-hat or drum loop. So it's really annoying.
That's so funny. It's so interesting to me that AI music has not caught up with AI images and video. Like, and it's not to say that there aren't innovations that are incredible. Like, go listen to like a Drake song that never existed, like that's amazing that can even exist. But I never would have guessed that AI visuals would have become believable before AI generated music. It's so interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think give it this year. I think that this year there will be some, or not this year, I'm sorry, 2024. I think that's something that we will definitely see in 2024 is a lot of that that fuzziness kind of starting to dissipate more and more and more. Even Suno, like that's gotten from launch to now has gotten, significantly better than where it was.
So you came out to LA, and then what made you want to leave? Did you leave before COVID?
Trying to buy a house.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, my wife and I, we had kids, and I'm sure that anyone who has spent any significant amount of time in LA and has looked at the housing market knows that, it's pretty bad. So yeah, after we stuck around for a year, had moved out to the Valley. By that point, we were in Glendale. And at some point it was just sort of, like, wait, why are we here again? Like, is this fun anymore? Is this, I mean, I'd done, I think like 12 to 14 years and, working in industry. And, I mean, yeah, I was tired by the end of it. So there's only so many like FU Fridays and, 13-hour days that you can, 13 if you're lucky, that you can put up with before you're just sort of like, I don't want to do this anymore. I think I'm done. So
I'm curious, because it has certainly seemed like that the unsustainable nature of Hollywood has it's continued, and there's been this revolving door of just new talent that'll just come in and like replace the burnt out folks, and it's just like this ever evolving thing. But it seems like this year was almost an inflection point in many ways for the industry, and kind of a reaction to the labor concerns and challenges that have been popping up around here. And I know AI gets a lot of the blame for that, but the truth is, like, for example, the writer's strike, for example,
right,
there hadn't been any halfway decent examples of AI generated films or scripts or anything like that until after the writer's strike had already been voted upon and started. You know what I mean? Like, it definitely got shoehorned into the larger conversation. But I'm curious about if we're just thinking about the future of the industry. Do you think it's just going to continue in these patterns, and we're going to, have stories like what you're talking about, where, you spend some time, you're really enthusiastic, and then over time you just want something more sustainable? Or do you think that really this is like I guess a seismic shift that's happening in the entertainment industry?
In terms of just like straight LA industry town, I'd heard a thing when I was living there, and definitely saw it as well, in that LA changes every 7 years. Like, it's like every 7 years. And that happened to me with like, I lived on Melrose for a long time, and just between from the time that I started there, lived there, until the time that I left, it's like every store had completely changed. Like, there are a couple of like standouts that, like, Astro Burger is still there, and will always be there for all time. But for the most part, like, just everything changes and moves there. So, and including people. So I think that it is an industry that it has its long-term people, and it has a bunch of people that aren't long-term. So you're either on this like 2-year like industry thing, and then you kind of vanish, or 10-year or 7-year, whatever it is. In terms of what all of this means, because you brought up the writers, the actors were another one too, that I think that AI became an inflection point in that strike as well. But the actors were never really opposed to AI. They just wanted to be paid. Like, that was, they didn't say no. They were just, I mean, there was definitely a contingent of them that weren't into the idea of like an avatar acting for them. But for the most part, that argument was really more about payment than anything. Like extras getting scanned in to be digital extras. Totally agree with all of that. I think that where we are in terms of AI filmmaking is that it's a new medium. Like, right now, the larger established industry is trying to make heads or tails out of like, how is this going to affect us? What's going to happen with all of this? How are we going to control it, manage it, et cetera, et cetera? Meanwhile, most of the people that are making AI films don't give an F. Like, they really don't. They're not thinking about like, how am I going to get this bought by Paramount? They're interested in making their own thing, finding their own distribution paths via the internet. I mean, a couple of people are obviously talking about like, oh, wouldn't it be great to get a Netflix series out of this? And I think that that's probably the first place that you're going to see this is, something on an animated level of like, I'm not knocking Bob's Burgers, but like something on that, that level of like animation. Not knocking Bob's Burgers, but something like that I could see being picked up. I used to say that it would be something like on a Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, but I don't know if that even exists anymore. I cut cable a long time ago, so if is that still there? I don't even know.
I mean, I'm sure it is, because every now and then we'll watch a show and it'll have like the Adult Swim like logo animation at the beginning. So at the very least, as a production company, I know it's still kicking.
So I kind of feel that that's pretty much where we'll see that at some point soon.
Like Love, Death, and Robots a little bit is where I'm thinking, like, not necessarily animation, but where it's like each episode is its own kind of thought out show.
I would love to see that. I mean, I would die to see like that happening right now. And I think a couple of people have been trying to sort of centralize AI Film Weekly, that sort of thing. But it hasn't really, a hub really hasn't developed. I think a lot of it too might have been the first couple of people that were trying to put it together weren't necessarily doing it out of the interest of the audience. It was more self-serving. So I do think that eventually that will come together. So
it's definitely changing and unlocking new opportunities for artists. I think it is changing things, but I feel like we've seen like prompt mastering positions open up, and I'm curious, what other positions do you think will be open to artists with these AI tools being available?
Well, I mean, I posted one yesterday in my community feed, the Door Brothers, who I really, really like. Those guys, doorbrothers.com. They are AI video and AI artists, basically. So they just had a position for an AI animator, for music videos. So I think we're definitely going to be seeing that happening a lot more. That's the prompt engineer. I was just at a panel a couple of days ago where I guess somebody had mentioned that that's starting, at least in the advertising world, at $90,000 a year. Like, wow, insane. Yeah. I do think that is a very short-lived job, though. Like the prompt engineer is not going to last very long. As the LLMs get better at just natural language, prompt engineering is that's gonna vanish as a title. So unless you're like the boss's son.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like prompt engineer is really, it's an art director with a sub skill is really what a prompt engineer is in my mind. It's like someone that has some sort of visual output that they are going for, that has been communicated to them, and now they're trying to figure out how to ask robots to give them that output, essentially. And so there's tools and techniques to extract that, but generally speaking, it's something that it always just falls back on your own creative taste and your ability to extrapolate meaning from images,
which is interesting. Then you're looking at, okay, 90,000 for an art director, is that a good salary or is that low? And that's interesting to think about. And I think pricing in general is an interesting conversation to have when it comes to AI, because it's all new. And so even when we are, being contracted for different videos for a client, like it's a little bit like, what do we charge? Like, what's the rate for this right now? And we're kind of setting that precedent, I guess. Yeah. So what do you think about that?
Well, that's one of those things. There's always like that kind of that freelance rate, because that's something that I fight with. Even having experience with it, I know that probably a lot of people watching this probably wrestle with as well, is like, how much am I worth? Because inherently as artists, you always think that you're worth less than you actually are. Always like whatever number you're thinking, add a zero. And you have to really think about it in terms of like, how long is this realistically going to take me, and really break it down into that hourly rate. And I mean, honestly, like my advice don't actually add a zero. That's it might be a little too much in terms of like, I am $7,000 an hour. But I mean, honestly, look at, other professional, industries and sort of figure out find out how much it costs to shoot a wedding. That's a photographer at a wedding. They are charging that amount with the little extra wedding bonus put in there. Charge that, honestly, and then figure out how many hours that it really will take you to do a project, because we always tend to underestimate it as well. And I think that AI has that problem of people like, oh, you just prompt it and it's done. It's like, no, there is so much more that you still need to do after generating an image. I mean, and then just, your overhead as well. If you're doing something professionally, you're probably going to have to run it through Topaz. That's machine time. That's, software time. That's all of this other stuff. Factor all of that stuff in. So make it expensive. That's what I say.
One of the best pieces of advice I ever received as a creative person, I was just sitting in a room with somebody, and they just said, I doubled my rate yesterday, and the client said nothing. And I love that so much. And I was like, I'm going to try that. And I went and experimented, and I doubled my rate, and nothing happened. They just said yes. Yeah. And you're not going to get that every time, but really every single time that I've thought, should I charge more? Sure. What the heck? Let's charge more.
Yeah.
It's not always a yes to that, let's say doubled amount, but usually it's a negotiation that's much higher than what I was originally going to settle for. So like,
Yeah.
I'd say shoot high. If you're in these conversations, like shoot high and then negotiate your way back to, a lower amount if it makes sense.
Yeah, I think that the inherent fear is always like the bird in hand thing that most artists have. It's like, oh, I've got a client on the hook. I'm going to ask him for this amount of money. Or there's two things, like, because they always come to you with like, what's your rate? And I think the artist will always think like, if I go too high, they're going to walk away from me and I'm going to lose this job. But if they don't come back and correct with just like, oh, it's a little bit much, I'm thinking this instead. If they do just ghost you, like you don't want to work for that job anyway. You don't want that job because they're probably going to come in so low ball on that, or it's just going to be somebody that's not communicative like already. So yeah, just you don't want it. It's fine. Like throw out your fee. Like honestly, then do it without any kind of or do it with conviction, I should say.
That's really, really good advice. And honestly, so I've put together some training in the past for visual effects artists, who are trying to get into the industry. And one thing that we've seen across the board is that whenever you become more technical, there's usually a pay increase. So for example, a video editor typically doesn't make as much as a visual effects artist, who doesn't make quite as much as a technical director. And so it's like this idea that the more techie and the more advanced in the technology you are, the more you can sustainably make in the industry, and the more rare it is to find somebody with those skills. So for example, like we're just talking about prompting in Midjourney. Lots of people know how to prompt well in Midjourney, but not a lot of people know how to take Midjourney images, for example, and edit them in Photoshop, how to lay that out into an advertisement, how to, turn those into, concept trailers through their skills in editing and sound design, all those things. So it's almost like this technical leveling up that you can do that really can increase your rate. And really just, I think about what is hard to learn that I actually think is play, and really push into that.
Yeah.
And maybe a lot of people watching this probably feel that way. I know I feel that way whenever I watch your channel, Tim. I'm just like, I'm watching it and it's like I'm watching, an episode of like cartoons again, because I'm just so excited to like see like what this new technology can do.
I can attest to that. He's a big fan.
And so like, I feel like there's a level of advantage that a lot of people who are watching this right now probably have, because you actually really enjoy pushing into learning the tech side of things and these AI tools in a way that other people will have to learn it out of necessity. And I think those are two very different worlds to be in. And you want your work to be, or you want other people's work to be your play. Like that's such a powerful advantage that you can have.
For sure. The other fun thing I think with where we are right now, everybody that's probably watching this is well down the rabbit hole of AI. But, that's one thing that I really want to recap, I guess, as we move into 2024, because we're still so early into all of this. I think what's kind of neat about this, as you were speaking about, being, niching down essentially in terms of your profession, is that like right now, nobody knows what's going on. So you can you're free to take whatever skills you have in, compositing, let's say 3D. It doesn't even necessarily have to be technical filmmaking stuff. You could actually figure out ways to incorporate other aspects of, your talents bring it into AI and really just kind of make up your own new position, Yes. I mean, you can call yourself right now whatever you want, as long as you can kind of somehow manage to, it's like the old art school thing. Like if you're, writing a paper on some piece of, it's all just, you're all just kind of BSing it anyways. Like, you're like, so, I mean, that's what we all do. Right. So, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to say that necessarily, but, but I mean,
I hear what you're saying, and all this stuff is new. And I think maybe to just push back against any misconceptions, it's not like there are secret rooms at these major studios where they really know something about the future of creativity that we don't. Like we get phone calls constantly of the biggest people in Hollywood, and they're like, what's happening? Can you just explain it? Because we have no idea. And it's like, how do you not know what's happened? Like it feels like if anyone would know what's happening, you would know, but it's just not the case. And so it's really cool though, because I think that what that means is the playing field is very level right now.
Very level.
And maybe that kind of transitions us into another question that I wanted to ask you, Tim. I was recently chatting with a friend, and he was just like, hey, be completely honest with me. Is it just too early? Should I just wait and, over the next 6 months, 12 months until everything is just transitioned over? We can just straight up prompt into, let's say Midjourney's video tool that will come out, and, I want, a very specific scene, and you're directing the action, and it's almost like having the most specific stock footage library in history. Should I just wait until that happens, or should I push into this now? And my advice at the time was push into it now, because you're going to open those early doors now, and then you'll be solidified whenever anybody will be able to step in the future and do that type of thing. But I'm curious about your take on that. Do you feel like it's a little early for practical application, or do you think like right now is actually the best time to be getting into the world of AI?
No, I absolutely think it's the best time to jump in right now, as you're going to be developing skills in a portfolio that are going to put you 6 months out ahead of the person that starts when it's ready. The other thing about when it's ready is that's always going to be a sliding scale. That's always going to be 6 months from now, no matter what. Like, it will never really hit the point of some like I think of like Kubrick, like, Stanley Kubrick and AI, who actually I think would actually have a blast with all of this stuff. But, as a perfectionist like him, or his personality type, you're always going to be trying to push the envelope, make it to the next thing. I mean, Kubrick would be in with like over at the runway headquarters, like yelling at all of their developers, probably like I want this shot specifically. But most of us don't have that power. But I think, it's always going to be like this. It's 6 months away. It's 6 months away. And, you're never going to be satisfied. So just start doing it now, and work within the limitations. I always go back to that thing of, Kevin Smith from Clerks. Why was Clerks in a convenience store? Because that's where he worked. That's what he had access to. So that's where he shot. I love all of those like 90s filmmakers, like that explosion of 90s filmmakers. Like Robert Rodriguez was another one that he shot. He shot with what was around him. Like his dolly was a wheelchair because he had a wheelchair. And that's how I feel like with all of our AI tools right now, is like there are the limitations, sure, but those limitations don't necessarily have to box you in. Those limitations can be opportunities to figure out creative ways to continue to tell your story.
Yeah, and I think being a generalist and knowing these other tools and how, like when there's a new update and where that lives within the pipeline, I think there's a lot of value in that. And so hopping in now, like you said, and like learning when it does progress, and 3 months from now, wherever it is, you're going to have so many more tools to work from and to utilize within that context of that project. So I agree with you.
That's where what I love about where we are right now is that, you see the people that are doing like, Midjourney images and then bringing them into like Blender and doing all their crazy Blender things. Others that are bringing them into After Effects and doing their crazy After Effects things. And, there is like, everybody's bringing their own outside talents in to work on their projects and making everything individualized,
Absolutely. It's actually really funny. I was just putting together a lesson for a course about pitch decks, and I did a deep dive into the Duffer Brothers, who, they directed Stranger Things, one of the biggest TV sensations ever, right? Yeah. And it's really interesting because, they're kind of renowned for having this really interesting pitch with Stranger Things, where, it was called Montauk at the time. And it was like a really cool, 80s looking book that they put together. And it was really good, like very creative. Mm-hmm. But the assumption sometimes can be that they just through charisma and personality and just a great idea, just showed up at Hollywood, dropped it on some executive's desk, and the executive gave them a high five, and they got after it. And I think a lot of creative artists are wanting that to happen one day, which is that's a noble goal, to want to be a part of a big project like that. But what we fail to realize is that most of the time people creatively level up. And so, if we're talking about the Duffer Brothers, they started out by literally making short films in college. Now, the short films they made in college, make my short films in college look ridiculous because they were just wicked talented at the time and really had that attention to storytelling and detail. And it was very clear that like there is something special here in the way that they are putting these things together. And, you know, it took them through creating, I think it was like 6 short films that were really good and high budget until they got to working on their first feature, which was pretty good. And then they started doing some collaborations with with M. Night Shyamalan on a series that he was producing, and that kind of got him into television, and, you know, led to Stranger Things. So that was a long-winded way of saying it always seems like creative people who are very successful were always very connected to their love of storytelling at the micro level, and that helps them unlock the macro. And I think like AI filmmaking is that micro. It's like your ability to put together a concept now that lives in any world and to tell a compelling story that goes viral or whatever is it's not easy because it's hard to be a good storyteller. But in terms of the limitations that are there, you don't have to ask permission now. You don't have to convince somebody to give you $50,000 to make a short film. Like, you can just do it.
And it also
awesome.
allows you to put in your reps. I feel like repetition creates like more success, and you learn from those mistakes, and so you iterate to not perfection, but to finding your voice, right? And so I think AI really allows people to put in so many more reps because you don't have to have a studio and all these tools.
No, I absolutely agree. The point about permission, I think, is a pretty like powerful one as well. That there was a artist that I really liked by the name of David Mack. Did a graphic novel called Kabuki. So he used to pass out these blank flyers. I've been meaning to sort of rip it off and put it on the channel as well. These like flyers that you could cut out, you could print and cut it out and laminate it, and it was your artistic license. And you were allowed, you know, you could print it out, laminate it, put it in your pocket, so that you're allowed to do whatever you want. Like, and I think that's what's kind of really powerful about this current place, is that you can do whatever you want, and you don't, and you have the ability to do. You have the technology to be able to do that as well.
I really want to spend some time talking about this new year and just, you know, the evolution of technology and art. And I guess if we kind of go back to what you were saying about Los Angeles earlier, you know, how the whole city changes about every 7 years. And we've seen that with different technologies that have progressed even in the past, you know, the move from analog to digital, you know, the move from, you know, classic distribution to streaming. I really like that 7-year rule, because it does feel like it takes about that amount of time to fully embrace something. Would you say that something like that timeline makes sense for the adoption of AI in Hollywood? Like, are we looking at, if it's 2023, you know, by 2030, is AI just going to be somewhat of the norm as it relates to filmmaking? Like, where do you see things progressing?
I mean, no crystal ball for me, but I think that industry is going to move much slower than AI, and I think that AI is going to force its hand. Like, it will have to adopt faster than it wants to. But, you know, I mean, I was there for the turnover from, you know, HD cam to, you know, from tape to digital. And like, I mean, there were machine room operators, and, you know, I mean, there were, you know, people were annoyed and angry, you know, and really drug their heels, you know, to before that, you know, that transition finally happened. So that's not going to be a choice this time around. It'll move too fast industry will have to catch up is essentially what it comes down to.
I really wondered too, because it seems like a lot of the strife that's happening in Hollywood ultimately goes back to Netflix. And what I mean by that is, you know, it feels like Netflix turned Hollywood into a tech industry.
Yes.
And it was that shift in the way in which content is consumed and distributed that shook things up. And we've seen that as the industry transitioned into a tech industry, they weren't able to figure it out exactly. And that, you know, explains, I think, a lot of the box office bombs and, you know, some of the challenges that have been popping up this year. I guess in light of that, maybe we could get into the nuts and bolts here of, how specific jobs might change. Let's just be practical, like in the next 1 to 2 years. So, Tim, maybe we can just list out a few job roles, and maybe you can just off the top of your head, think about some of the ways in which they might change a little bit in the next couple of years. So
from a practical standpoint, I think that like there are just some AI technologies that are going to assist people in terms of like if you're a DP, for example, like I'm sure that there's going to be some kind of AI assisted focus pulling system that there's probably, if you're an editor or you're an AE, for example, I don't know if it's been a while since I've checked in on it, but I'm sure that there's some kind of face tagging thing that will pretty much like auto log a lot of like your stuff so that you don't have to have a PA sitting there and going through every daily and figuring stuff out. Those in terms of entirely new jobs. I don't know. Yeah. Well, what do you think? Let's riff for a little while. Let's figure it out. Let's solve Hollywood on this podcast.
What if we list out jobs and you tell us, how do you think? So for instance, like a director, how do you think a director's job might change in light of this like new AI?
I mean, you could probably, just alone, I think you will see a generation of filmmakers coming up that, do you ever see the behind the scenes stuff for Alien, how Ridley Scott would do what he called his Ridleygrams? They were like drawings essentially it was like he storyboarded the entire movie. He wrote it out like a comic book, basically. George Miller, when he did Fury Road, sort of famously didn't have a script. It was all just storyboards. So it was all visual, which is why that movie is so visual. But I think that that's something that we might see in the future as well, is filmmakers that are coming up right now, utilizing the tools that we have, and being able to essentially, shoot and previs the entire movie, through AI before they even step on set. That may happen in 2 years. Who knows?
Yeah. I think it's already happening. I definitely could see that's happening, especially we've talked to a few directors who are like training their own Laurel models with actors and scenes, or with like the set, and then prompting for what they want each shot to look like. And it's like, looks pretty good, I think it's already happening.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like directors' abilities to communicate their creative vision, it's never been easier to communicate, hey, I want it to look like this, and whether it's to your costume designers or your set, designers, like really like across the board, like visually, you can communicate that very, very easily now. And it's not perfect, at least to the iterations that we have right now, if anyone's prompted in Midjourney, it's like a back and forth process to get it to give you what you're looking for. And even sometimes, you still can't quite get that specific shot, composition, whatever. And so, it's going to be an iterative process to get there. But it does feel like even right now, directors are embracing the technology.
Yeah. I just think it's like just Midjourney alone, I think gets you so close to how many times I'm sure you guys have run into it on the client side. And I know that it happens on the directorial side as well, is the phrase, I'll know it when I see it. And that's the most infuriating phrase ever, because it's like, okay, I guess we're going to go out big for this for a while. But even just with Midjourney, that's going to save an immense amount of time, because it's just sort of like, okay, here's my laptop, type in words and let me know which ones you like and which ones you don't. So yeah. I know that's never going to actually happen. Like they're never actually going to type in the words. It's still going to be us doing it, but still.
No, I do love that though, just that I know it when I see it. That used to be just such a frustrating experience, because it basically means they don't have creative direction, or they have like maybe just more of a feeling that they're trying to unlock. And it's like, how do you put into words feelings? But it is interesting, because I do feel like, with some recent innovations, like, the new Stable Diffusion Turbo, that like some people are getting it to create like 150 images a second, you can basically just type in a loose prompt and then see 10,000 pictures potentially, and then you'll know it when you see it, because you'll see it. There's enough iterations.
Generating faster than you can type. That's insane.
Exactly. It's wild. Maybe one more group of folks that I would love to talk about is screenwriters specifically. So maybe I can start with kind of where we've kind of had conversations with and what we believe, and I would be curious about what you think, Tim. So, I really feel like people that have the ability to communicate a story or an idea for a story and push that forward have possibly the most power in this transition to the artificial intelligence revolution. And so it's really interesting because in one sense, it's very true that, for me at least, that in the next couple of years, these AI language models will more than likely be able to create very good scripts. Like that just seems like an inevitability. But it's the people that can have the vision to take those stories, to edit those stories, and then convince people to get excited and to collaborate on those story ideas that will really have a lot of power. It seems like writers, especially in television, have had that ability in the past. And so a lot of the fear, I think, for screenwriters, I would say, like, your job is changing, but you're going to have a lot of power if you really press into this going forward. Do you agree with that, Tim? Like, how do you think things will change?
I do. I mean, I think the WGA got it right. The strike ended correctly in that here it is. You can use it if you want to. You can't be mandated to use it. We can't force you to use it. So correct take there. I think that we'll see what ends up happening. I mean, I think that no matter how great prompting gets, it's still going to be the prompt a screenplay, let's say 10 years from now, it's still going to be taking the median of like all of the screenplays and kind of putting it together. So you're not going to really be able to, you won't be able to prompt something that really zigs or zags super hard. I can't think of like the most gonzo movie I've seen recently, but like where, any movie where you're just like, what is going on? What is happening? Like, you're probably not going to be able to get those. The one that I saw recently that I really did like was plot.ai, which is really kind of more like, it doesn't write the screenplay for you, although they do have a component. It's a little bit, but what it really more does is it kind of takes you through essentially kind of a save the cat template, where it's constantly asking you questions like, who's your main character? What's their big fear? What are they striving for? Who's your secondary character? And it's just on and on it goes. And if you ever get stuck, you can hit a little generate button where it'll fill in, stuff for you so that you can answer the question, or at least it'll give you an idea of like, oh, that's what the bot thought. I don't like that, so I'm going to change this. So it's this constant, like, it's just constantly questioning you. It very much is, again, a template that is, Save the Cat or any of the other 10,000, 3 to 5 act structure templates that exist. But it really helps hone in for, I would say, like a non-seasoned writer, or maybe even a seasoned writer, like just those questions that you need answered to have a strongly structured story,
Yeah, that's really helpful. And that's a cool way of going about it. It's like, I'm here as a creative assistant, going to help you get over any creative hurdles that pop up, but I still want you to bring your creativity to the table.
Right.
I really like that experience. It's cool.
Off the top of my head, like I don't see like being able to prompt a Harmony Korine movie. Like that's just not, you know what I mean? Like that's like any one of his gonzo like Gummo movies, or what was the one that he did one that was like an AI one, I think Beyond something. I can't remember what it was. There was some that was at Cannes this year that was like a AI film, but it really wasn't an AI film. It was just shot on like a night vision camera. I still don't know. I only followed it a little bit. So, but yeah, I mean, like you can't prompt that, you know what I mean? Like that's not anything that weird is not gonna come up in a prompt. So,
what's interesting is there's a lot of convincing that needs to happen to get a project out in Hollywood. We were having a chat with our team this morning about it, because obviously there's a ton of interest in like, hey, let's make an AI feature film. And like, everybody wants that to happen. But there's so much like red tape and so much creative friction that can happen between coming up with a rock star idea, and like for examples of those ideas, you can check out I think the Blacklist came out today, which is like all the scripts in Hollywood that didn't get picked up that like aren't really awesome. They kind of create a list each year. And you can see like, there's all these ideas that are awesome if they would be turned into films that just will never be turned into films. And it really feels like AI might unlock the ability to even pre-visualize what a film might be like so that you can then take it from there and like turn it into something larger. And, I don't know if that would be an entirely digital experience, but maybe it's, hey, like, let's see like a crazy, trailer for a film that's like about, the AI with the intersection of like I don't know, the French Revolution or something like that. And then like you see this like wild, film pop up, and then, oh, actually that could be an interesting idea. Let me take this trailer that AI created or the smaller idea and expand on it. I don't know. It feels like there's just like many opportunities to have these as creative collaborators and really idea machines to help you see potential and extract it.
And I don't even necessarily know. I know a lot of people are worried about sort of the, prompt your own movie, sit down at and turn on Netflix in 10 years and just say, make me a Batman movie starring the Clooney Batman, but I want, Heath Ledger's Joker in it, or, whatever it is. And I can't necessarily say that won't happen. But I do think that when you start moving into that area, you're moving into something that becomes that gets away from movies. Like, movies are passive entertainment. You sit there and you watch them and you consume them. And then video games, of course, are active entertainment. You sit and you are engaged with, with the screen. And so what I really actually honestly foresee happening in 10 years or so is something that is sort of a hybrid of the two of them. That, you'll be able to sort of, it's not quite, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to predict it too much because God knows tomorrow, like some new technology will come out and be like, oh, of course that was it. It's not like Bandersnatch, there was the Netflix Black Mirror thing where it's like the choose your own adventure. I don't think it'll be quite that simplified, but, and I don't even know if like you're going to necessarily, one of the things that people have been worried about is like, I want to watch Star Wars, but I'm Luke Skywalker. And I don't know if people are going to be really that interested in that. I don't see the infrastructure being built to do that, because I don't know if enough people would want to. In all honesty, like, I wouldn't want to see my face. I can see my face all day. I don't want to.
But it really feels like, that hyper personalized entertainment experience. There's kind of two facets to that. One, just figuring out what you want to watch right now is challenging, right? It feels right now like there are too many things to pick from, and you just end up watching like reruns of The Office anyway. Yeah. And then number two is really, I think one of the challenges of the adoption of the metaverse, for example, is that it's a very isolated experience. Yes, you're able to connect with people around the world, and that is like really interesting. But generally speaking, if you're in that metaverse, you're not really with other people who are with you. There's notable exceptions, like if you're playing like Beat Saber or like one of those games, but like really it's one person having fun and four people looking at them having fun, and that's right. The fun part is that they are having fun and them. Like, I don't know, like it's not a very captivating experience for a collective to experience together. Mm-hmm. And I do wonder with personalized entertainment, is it really that interesting for me to watch a movie of Tim starring in the new Star Wars movie?
It is not.
I don't know. I would personally love that.
How do you see AI changing audience habits? Like, maybe if not that, like, what are ways in which you maybe already see audience habits changing, and where do you see it continuing to change?
I've been saying for a while that weirdly, I think that recommendation systems are going to, obviously personalized recommendation systems are going to be in overload. Actually, weirdly enough, I was just talking about the inverse of that. I think that you're going to see marketing just explode like next year, once they figure out all of these tools and all of the personalized, like everybody's like, oh, I'm getting Facebook ads because it's listening to me. It's gonna be that times like 80. It's gonna be out of control. And I think that you're gonna be really flooded with just a ton of like these, you're gonna be hit hard with all of these personalized recommendations. And weirdly enough, I think the inverse is going to happen on a societal level, where we're going to start trusting influencers, which is really weird to say. But if you find like, and it'll be sort of like, I guess, DJs, tastemakers, bloggers, the bloggers may have power again. Like actual people that are verified. We know that is a person, not an AI avatar, that is going out and finding good stuff and recommending it to us. I think that that's actually going to be more of a trend as we move forward, as opposed to AI doing that for you, because we're just going to be getting hit with it so much.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a natural transition kind of as we wrap up here, because I feel like in many ways that is a role that you really do serve in the industry, as the disseminator of like, hey, you should check this out. Like, I've actually tested this. This is what you should use. Because I feel like if you just went off the marketing alone, whether it's on Twitter or, email blasts or even newsletters that have like paid spots in them that people rent out to tell you what's important, it would become too fatiguing. So like, I think the service that you offer the creative community is very valuable.
But how are you in light of the fatiguing, because if you're that person who's, disseminating all that information, we know because we feel it too. Like, how are you coping with that level of fatigue? Because it's every day something new that I have to test and digest and teach. And, how are you doing?
Who's it? I think Better Mind just reached out to me for a sponsorship spot. I'm like, instead of paying me, let's just do therapy. No, it's exhausting, but at the same time, I think that the way that my brain works is like, even like, it's all state of play. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what. And so even when I am actively trying to, like, I got to take a break, I got to rest for a little while, I'll catch something on Twitter or whatever, and it just gets me excited again. So I mean, I'm still like it's like, I gotta take a break. Okay, so I'll just play with this instead of actually do it. And I mean, it just I can't help myself. That's all.
What's your favorite tool right now for play? Like, where are you feeling inspired? I personally, I was playing with is it Kyber AI this weekend, the drawing one?
Oh, Kyber's so much fun.
It's so fun.
I love it.
What do you have?
Yeah, that one's pretty wacky and weird. Right now, I've been having a lot of fun with, I mean, honestly, since the Pico 1.0 update, I've been having a lot of fun with that. I've taken a couple of older tracks that I've worked on. I'm actually working on some music video stuff just as like a fun creative excuse to revisit these songs that I never got a chance to do anything with. And what I've really been finding to be a lot of fun currently is that, like, the text to video stuff has gotten really pretty interesting. That's definitely leveled up in the last couple of months. Like, text to video has gotten really solid, creative, and interesting. I know that everyone has always been like, oh, my Mid-Journey image, I want to animate that. But I'm actually starting to see kind of better and cooler and more fun results from text to video.
Cool. Well, I have a few rapid fire questions.
Let's do it.
So to be fair, I asked ChatGPT to help me come up with these because I didn't have them quite yet. And I was like,
okay,
this is the context. So let's just see what Chat gave us. What movie can you watch over and over again without getting tired of it?
Oh God, there's so many. Just the one that immediately comes to my mind is Heat. Like, anytime that Heat comes on, like, if I catch any part of it at any point in time, I'm watching the rest of it.
Heat. Okay.
Yeah, I'll go with Heat. And then more in a modern sense, Dune as well. I'm really looking forward to the new Dune movie. And that's a 3-hour movie. So
yeah, that's a commitment.
If I catch the first 5 minutes of it, I'm there for a while.
We went to the theater to watch Dune after like a 6-mile hike and eating like a pasta dinner. And we were so tired. And I fell asleep just a little bit. So I feel like I need to watch it again. And Caleb was definitely like in dad mode because the kids next to us had their phone with their lights on. And he was like, excuse me, children. Turn that off. And I was like,
you're wanting the cinematic experience.
When I was like, who are you? I love it. It was really funny. I love that. Okay. If you could be any character from a movie, who would you choose?
Oh, that is interesting. I'm just going to say Benjamin Button just because I was thinking about him today. And I can't remember how that movie ended. Is he a little baby that dies at the end of it? Because he starts off as the old little baby and then he grows up into Brad Pitt. And then he kind of starts shrinking down again. So that means is he a little baby that dies? That's kind of dark, isn't it? I don't remember.
I love that was top of mind. You're just like, Benjamin Button. I've been just thinking about him today. What made you think about Benjamin Button today? I need a backstory.
Random thought. Totally random thought. So this is how a lot of the examples on the channel come up, is just like, just random shower thought or something like that. And I'm just like, what?
It might be this problem that I have where you look in the mirror and you see gray hair and you start thinking of Benjamin Button just naturally, right?
There's definitely probably a little bit of that subconsciously going on.
It'd be great to de-age. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's too funny. If you could eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
The pizza taco that's shoved into a hamburger. It's like a pizza taco, hamburger.
And if you had to choose,
Where do you get this?
I don't know. We're gonna have to make it up.
Reminds me of that old SNL Taco Town skit that they did.
oh, I don't know.
Which was like it just is like a commercial for food, and then it starts out with like a taco, and then they wrap it in like taco with beans, and it just by the end it gets totally unhinged.
Yeah.
So if you're having this taco pizza burger, what Chick-fil-A sauce would you choose to go with it?
Oh, I mean original. I mean I'm very basic in that regard. I love my standard.
Same, it's so good. And we need that recipe that you have for your
Oh yeah,
Chick-fil-A.
for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so I think that's all I have, Caleb. I don't know if you have any. Last question is, where can people see more of your work?
The youtube.com at theoretically media. I'm also on Twitter at theomediaai. I think I am, but I think I am. I completely forgot. Because I mean, it's like Twitter handles are a bit like phone numbers at this point. I feel like it's like you kind of know what it is, maybe, but really just go to this site and then just click the link. Like,
yeah.
So yeah. Those are the two places that I mostly am. I do LinkedIn very, very badly, and I have virtually no presence on Instagram, just because I can't. There's only so much you can do. So
you use TikTok?
Not for this. I did some stuff a while back on the music side, and it was okay. But no, I haven't done any AI TikTok stuff. I've been kind of thinking about it, but I'm not sure. Like, I don't even do shorts. You guys do shorts, right?
We are. Right. Yes, we do. We're wanting to look more into it.
Right. Yeah.
Post more shorts. Yeah.
I've been thinking about it in 24, but I mean, at the same time, the audiences are so different. Now I'm moving into YouTube stuff and really boring people, but I do feel, well, maybe the audience can tell us as well. Like in terms of shorts versus like TikTok shorts versus YouTube shorts, I think they're just two different. They're two different animals, and I just don't have enough time to be able to do like a specific TikTok thing and a specific YouTube thing, and then do a regular YouTube thing. So
that's a good question. Yeah, if everyone in the audience, I want to know if people watch YouTube shorts and enjoy them, or if they just watch shorts on TikTok instead.
Well, I think that I mean, I don't know about you guys, but if you're just like watching shorts on your own, it's generally not the stuff like this that it's just like, it's the random.
I don't watch shorts at all on YouTube. So I don't know if like that's, okay. I'm weird. Maybe I'm not normal,
I mean, I don't watch them on YouTube, but if I'm like bored somewhere and I have my phone, like I'll scroll through them that way. But again, it's never anything that has to do with like, it's like funny cat videos and that kind of, that's what I want to watch. I don't
like viral content.
Yeah. I don't want to watch a minute-long tutorial on something because,
exactly. Yeah.
And I don't want to make a minute-long tutorial on something. I just, like, that just sounds exhausting. Okay, here's PCAT, and this is what you do.
Exactly.
I need a nap. Maybe it'll put you to sleep. You just like watch a minute tutorial of Tim teaching you PCAT, and you just go take a nap.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm just kidding. I love it.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for taking the time to be on this podcast and then also to judge the holiday competition.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to
announce
those winners. Hopefully by the time this video is live, we will have those winners announced, and the films were really amazing.
Yeah.
They really were. It's a real joy to watch those. So congratulations once again to the winner. I don't want to winners, I should say. I don't want to say anything because I don't know if this releases before or after. So, but congratulations to all of them. They were all really great. So I even got to see a few in the Dropbox that were not, I guess, in the runner-up category as well. So I just wanted to shout the people that, if you guys didn't make the cut, I may have seen a few of yours as well. They were all really, really stellar. You guys are great filmmakers.
Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. Well, Tim, we'll have to do this again sometime soon, but best of luck with your channel. Thank you so much for everything you do for the art world. It's incredibly generous, and we can't wait to see what you're able to put together as we get into 2024.
Me too.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, you guys too. We will see you guys soon.